Scarlett O'Hara was the jewel of Clayton County, Georgia. With emerald eyes and raven dark curls, she held every young man in her orbit with the ease of a queen presiding over loyal subjects. Tara, her father's sprawling plantation, was a land of plenty, cotton fields stretching endlessly, laughter echoing across the grand halls, and parties where Scarlett's wit and charm always made her the star. To her, this life was unshakable, a world of endless gowns, admiration, and luxury. Yet beneath the flirtations and laughter, Scarlett harbored a deep and consuming passion for Ashley Wilkes. Ashley was refined, quiet, and poetic, a man who belonged to books and ideals rather than to the rough, competitive world of men like her father. To Scarlett, Ashley was perfection, and she believed he loved her in return. But whispers grew louder that Ashley intended to marry his gentle cousin, Melanie Hamilton. At the Wilkes' elegant 12 Oaks barbecue, with lanterns glowing and music filling the air, Scarlett's world tilted. She cornered Ashley in the library, her heart pounding. Her words spilled out in desperation, pleas, declarations, promises that they were meant for one another. But Ashley shook his head gently. He admitted affection for Scarlett, but confessed he was bound to Melanie, whose quiet strength and understanding steadied his restless soul. Humiliated, Scarlett lashed out. She called Ashley weak, blind, a fool for settling. But her fiery words did not go unheard. Hidden in a chair behind the curtains, Rhett Butler, an infamous Charleston rogue known for scandal and shameless honesty, had witnessed everything. When he revealed himself, his sharp eyes glittered with amusement. Unlike the other men, Rhett wasn't fooled by Scarlett's carefully practiced charm. He saw her hunger for power, her selfishness, and her raw determination. "You're not a girl to dream about moonlight and magnolias," he told her with a sly smile. "You're made for much more dangerous things." Scarlett burned with anger at his audacity, yet she was intrigued. Rhett was unlike anyone she had ever known. Cynical, confident, untamed. Even as she swore to herself she hated him, she couldn't forget his piercing gaze. That same evening, voices rose with patriotic fervor. News of Lincoln's call for troops had reached Georgia, and the young men cheered, declaring they would whip the Yankees in weeks. Scarlett watched in silence as Ashley, Charles Hamilton, Melanie's brother, and countless others pledged their lives to the Confederate cause. The air was thick with excitement, as if war were a grand adventure. But Scarlett's heart was not stirred by patriotism. She cared nothing for politics or battles. All she knew was that Ashley belonged to another woman, and the world she adored was slipping from her grasp. She felt the ground beneath her feet tremble, not from war drums, but from the painful truth that life was changing. The era of balls and laughter was ending. A storm was coming to Tara, and Scarlett, though she didn't know it yet, would be forced to transform from pampered belle to hardened survivor. The war that had begun with cheers and promises of glory soon revealed itself as a cruel destroyer. Scarlett O'Hara, still smarting from Ashley's rejection, found herself caught in a whirlwind of change. Ashley had gone off to fight, and in a fit of spite, Scarlett married Charles Hamilton, Melanie's quiet brother. She told herself it was to wound Ashley, to prove she could choose happiness elsewhere. But Charles died quickly from illness in a military camp, leaving Scarlett widowed before she had even learned what it meant to be a wife. Now trapped in mourning black, Scarlett felt suffocated. At only 16, she was forbidden from dancing, laughing, or attracting attention. Life became a dull shadow of what it had been. Yet her beauty and restlessness could not be hidden. When her mother sent her to Atlanta to stay with Aunt Pitty Pat and Melanie, Scarlett found herself at the center of a bustling city that lived and breathed the war. Atlanta was filled with soldiers, hospitals, and endless talk of victory. Scarlett hated it. She didn't care about glory or honor, she wanted Ashley. Her love for him burned stronger than ever, even as Melanie, now Ashley's wife, grew closer to her in friendship. Scarlett despised Melanie's gentle kindness, her unwavering faith in Ashley, but she tolerated it, masking her envy beneath smiles. And there in Atlanta, Fate reunited her with Rhett Butler. He was as bold as ever, openly mocking the Confederacy, ridiculing illusions of victory, and admiring Scarlett with unapologetic frankness. While others whispered that Rhett was a scoundrel profiteering from war, Scarlett found herself drawn to his blunt honesty. He made her feel alive in ways no one else could. When Rhett asked her to dance at a charity bazaar, scandalously, while she was still in mourning, Scarlett felt a thrill of defiance as the room gasped. Together they spun across the floor, both rebels against society's expectations. But the war tightened its grip. Atlanta, once vibrant, grew desperate. The wounded filled every street, and food became scarce. Scarlett's world of dresses and admiration seemed foolish compared to the blood-soaked reality around her. Yet she clung stubbornly to survival, to finding ways to still be admired, even as she volunteered at hospitals and listened to women cry for their lost sons. When Ashley returned briefly on furlough, Scarlett's heart ached all over again. He still belonged to Melanie, who waited patiently with unwavering loyalty. Scarlett confessed her feelings again, hoping the chaos of war might change his heart. But Ashley, though conflicted, refused her once more. Still, he begged her to care for Melanie if he didn't return. This request only deepened Scarlett's resentment, but she agreed, knowing it kept her tied to him. As the Union Army pushed closer, panic swept through Atlanta. Battles raged near its borders, and whispers of defeat grew louder. The once proud city faced ruin. Scarlett, trapped between her love for Ashley, her uneasy fascination with Rhett, and her own fear of survival, stood on the edge of transformation. The war was no longer a distant story. It was at her doorstep, demanding strength she never knew she had. Atlanta fell under siege, and the city Scarlett once hated but relied upon became a prison of fire and smoke. Melanie, frail and heavily pregnant, went into labor just as Union forces closed in. Amidst the chaos, Scarlett realized she alone could not abandon her. Though she despised Melanie for having Ashley, Scarlett's determination to live, and perhaps keep Ashley's hope alive, compelled her to act. With Rhett's help, Scarlett drove a rickety carriage through streets lit by fire, narrowly escaping as Atlanta burned behind them. Halfway through their desperate flight, Rhett stunned her by announcing he was leaving. He claimed his duty was to join the Confederate Army in its dying moments, even if it meant death. Scarlett was furious, abandoned once again by a man who might have saved her. Left with only Melanie, her newborn baby, and a broken city in her wake, Scarlett pressed on toward Tara. When she finally reached her family's plantation, Scarlett's world shattered. Tara was no longer the grand estate of her youth. It was gutted, trampled, and stripped bare. Her mother had died of illness, her father was broken in spirit, and her sisters were weak from hunger. The once mighty fields of cotton were nothing but weeds. Union troops had taken everything of value. The O'Hara family was destitute, living on scraps. Scarlett's transformation hardened that very night. Standing beneath the sky, gaunt with hunger yet blazing with determination, she swore she would never go hungry again. Her famous vow, "As God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again," wasn't just words. It was the moment she shed her girlish dreams and embraced ruthless survival. Scarlett clawed her way back from despair. She forced herself into the fields, working with blistered hands, something once unthinkable for a lady of Tara. She scavenged for food, cheated when she had to, and even killed a Union soldier who attempted to assault her. Her beauty became secondary to her iron will, but survival demanded more. When taxes on Tara threatened to take the last remnant of her heritage, Scarlett turned to Rhett, hoping his rumored fortune could save her. She visited him in prison, flaunting her charm, but Rhett, amused yet broke, could offer no help. Desperate, Scarlett manipulated and married her sister's wealthy fiancé, Frank Kennedy. She didn't love him, but his money secured Tara's future. Scarlett's cold pragmatism shocked everyone, but she no longer cared. Love and honor were luxuries she couldn't afford. Atlanta, now under Union control, became Scarlett's new home once again. With Frank's resources and her unyielding drive, she expanded a sawmill business, defying expectations of women and outraging polite society. She made enemies, but she also built power, and always in the shadows was Rhett, watching, mocking, admiring her fierce survival. They clashed, they bantered, and slowly, an undeniable fire grew between them. Scarlett had become the embodiment of the New South, unyielding, hardened, and unwilling to bow. She had survived the unthinkable, but her hunger for Ashley, her restless ambition, and her reckless heart promised that her battles were far from over. Scarlett's marriage to Frank Kennedy brought security, but not fulfillment. Her heart remained tangled in her obsession with Ashley, even as she built a life defined by wealth and determination. Yet tragedy struck when Frank was killed during a night raid. Once again widowed, Scarlett faced scandal and grief. But Rhett Butler, ever bold, stepped into the void. With equal parts passion and cunning, he proposed marriage. Scarlett, recognizing his wealth and strength, accepted not for love, but for the power and protection he offered. Their union was fiery, stormy, and unlike anything Scarlett had ever known. Rhett adored her fiercely, showering her with luxuries and admiration, but he also matched her willpower. Where others bowed, Rhett challenged. He knew her darkest flaws and loved her for them, not in spite of them. For a time, Scarlett thrived. They had a daughter, Bonnie Blue, whose presence softened Scarlett's hardened edges and became Rhett's pride and joy. Yet even this new chapter was haunted. Scarlett's longing for Ashley never truly faded, poisoning her marriage. Rhett knew it, and though he mocked her childish obsession, it wounded him deeply. Their love became a battleground, passion intertwined with mistrust, tenderness overshadowed by pride. The final blow came with tragedy. Bonnie, their beloved daughter, died in a riding accident. Rhett was inconsolable, broken by grief. Scarlett too mourned, but her pride and selfishness kept her from offering him the comfort he needed. Their marriage, already fragile, crumbled. Rhett withdrew, and Scarlett only then began to realize that her love for Ashley was an illusion. It had been Rhett all along, Rhett who had seen her, understood her, and matched her fire. In a moment of clarity, Scarlett tried to mend what was broken. She begged Rhett to stay, to not give up on them. But Rhett, exhausted and disillusioned, could no longer bear the cycle of hurt. As he prepared to leave, Scarlett pleaded, asking what would become of her. His reply was as devastating as it was final. "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." Scarlett stood alone in the ruins of her choices, watching Rhett walk away. For once her determination faltered, her willpower cracking under the weight of true loss. Yet even then, Scarlett's spirit refused to shatter. She clung to her last bastion of hope. "Tara, after all," she whispered to herself, "tomorrow is another day." The story closed not with resolution, but with resilience. Scarlett had lost the man who loved her most, the man she only realized too late she loved in return. But she had not lost herself. She would rise again, rebuild and fight, as she always had. For Scarlett O'Hara, survival was not just instinct, it was destiny.